As soon as people became wealthy enough not to have to spend every waking hour of their day working, cleaning, hunting, or cooking, they had enough time to look in the mirror and decide what they didn't like about themselves. And so, for hundreds, if not thousands of years, people, and let's be honest, mainly women, who have forever been held to unthinkably high standards of beauty, have done whatever they could to their bodies to achieve their society's idea of perfection. From the truly horrific and crippling footbinding practices in imperial China to modern-day plastic surgery, people have been searching for ways to achieve their body goals. Victorian England, the initial setting for today's story, was possibly one of the craziest times in history when it came to the number of diet fads and body morphing practices. So what better place to dive in and see where the stories take us? These are the bizarre but true stories from history that in some way involve food. I'm Nick Charlie Key, and this is the fantastic history of food. One of today's sponsors is Athletic Greens. So what is Athletic Greens? Well, with one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food-sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, your recovery, your focus, and aging. And best of all, it's lifestyle friendly. So whether you follow a keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free or gluten-free diet, Athletic Greens fits into all of them. It costs less than $3 a day, and for every purchase, Athletic Greens donates to organizations helping to get nutritious food to kids in need, including No Kid Hungry in the US. In 2020 alone, Athletic Greens donated over 1.2 million meals to kids. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with a convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/emerging. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/emerging to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
If you are a professional looking at the European startup scene, Germany is a place you cannot miss. Fortunately for you, there is startuprad.io, the authority on German startups. This English-only podcast brings you fresh interviews each week. Most likely, you have never heard or read anything on these startups before in English, but you will in the future. Be ahead of the curve and subscribe to startuprad.io podcast, or check for the startuprad.io internet radio station. Check your Alexa for the startuprad.io skill as well.
The Victorian era in England dominated most of the 1800s and is notorious amongst historians for their truly bizarre standards of beauty. For some reason, the upper crust society women decided that true beauty meant looking like you were suffering from a life-threatening disease. Tuberculosis, to be exact, or consumption, as they called it then. What this meant in practice is that women would shy away from sunlight as well as powdering their faces in order to get that truly pale skin look with slightly dilated eyes, rosy cheeks, crimson lips, and a frame so skinny as to struggle to hold itself aloft. In order to achieve some of these looks, women would do irreversible damage to themselves and their health by drinking ammonia or bathing in arsenic, which at the time they already knew was poisonous. Figure-crushing corsets were pulled so tightly that breathing became difficult, all in the name of achieving that so-called perfect 16-inch waistline. In today's society, thankfully, these practices have mostly fallen by the wayside as both standards of beauty have changed, along with the woman's fight against the pressures of modern society to look, act, or speak in a certain way. But, as always, one particular practice has somehow weathered the storm and clung on through the sands of time. It has even been mentioned by one of the Kardashians as an option to speed up her weight loss, as well as featuring on more diet blogs than I care to mention. And that is the literally stomach-churning idea of the tapeworm diet. In theory, it sounds relatively harmless, and rather simple, in fact. All you do is swallow a pill capsule with a freeze-dried tapeworm egg inside. The warmth of your insides allows the egg to thaw and attach itself to you before hatching into a terrifying tapeworm. Once the parasite is alive and growing inside of the host, it begins eating part of whatever its human eats. The theory goes that the so-called dieter can then eat whatever they want and still lose weight, as the tapeworm chomps a portion of everything that comes past it. Now, to Victorian ladies, this sounded like the Holy Grail. The best of both worlds, to be exact. One of the most popular pieces of women's literature in these times was a beauty guide penned by a woman named S.D. Powers. It was, ironically, called the Ugly Girl Papers, and was an illustrated guide to becoming more beautiful. In fact, the guide's overarching principle stated that it is a woman's business to be beautiful. Beauty, especially in Victorian England with its myriad of fads, took a lot of time and effort, and, according to the guide, could not and should not forego the tediousness of beauty regimes, should she so desire to find a husband. It's not hard to see now why women were prepared to do almost anything to achieve the ideals of their times. Any concerns about health or any discomfort felt from the tapeworm were simply chalked up to the fact that beauty is pain, and sacrifices needed to be made. But one of the ultimate sacrifices to be made was once the woman's desired weight had been reached. How do we get the tapeworm out again? And this is where things get interesting. Now that the tapeworm was no longer necessary, they would approach doctors to help them retrieve the unwanted parasite. In Victorian England, you would often be faced with two options, neither of which were 100% effective, but ones that were incredibly different in their methodology. Firstly, and most simply, patients were often given special medicinal pills to hopefully kill off the tapeworm and allow it to be flushed out of their system. Like I said, this wasn't always effective, and in fact wasn't even close. It was very hit or miss, and more often than not, it missed. Then there was option 2, which was a whole lot more invasive and a whole lot more dangerous to the human host. Victorian doctors employed the invention of a Dr. Myers of Sheffield, who surmised that because tapeworms loved food so much, the patient should therefore starve themselves for a few days, and in turn also starve the tapeworm. Once the tapeworm was desperate enough for some food, Dr. Myers' invention would be used. The invention in question was a cylinder filled with food attached to a long string. The cylinder would be inserted via the mouth and, if all went well, swallowed down into the digestive tract. The smell of the food would alert the tapeworm, and it would attempt to eat whatever it could inside the cylinder. The cylinder would then be pulled back up the digestive tract, luring the tapeworm up and up until it was visible to the doctor, whereby it could be grabbed and slowly wound out of the patient. At this point, it's worth noting that adult tapeworms can grow to be as long as 25 meters or 80 feet long. The pulling out process was not a quick thing, and, as I'm sure you can imagine, an incredibly uncomfortable procedure for the patient. There's also one other thing that made this method particularly daunting for patients, and that is due to the size of the cylinder the patients needed to swallow. Many of them, unfortunately, ended up choking to death on the cylinder before the tapeworm could even be successfully removed. Now, some folk medicine cures hilariously state that one should simply hold a glass of milk at both ends of your top and bottom openings and wait for the tapeworm to come out for a drink. In 1912, reports of tapeworm consumption began to appear in the United States. In this case, it happened unwillingly to a wealthy woman who had sent away for a miracle diet pill, only to realize after consumption that they contained tapeworm eggs. There are also stories of horse racing jockeys, famous for needing to be as small and light as possible, ingesting tapeworms to maintain their optimal racetrack weights. Tapeworms generally only cause minor discomfort in sufferers and nowadays can be easily treated. However, in some cases, when they grow to excessive sizes and aren't treated for a prolonged period of time, they have been known to cause meningitis, epilepsy, and even dementia. This is in stark contrast to a 1920s newspaper advert cheerfully selling the tapeworm diet as a solution, which read, "Tapeworms, no danger, no diet, no exercise." Now, the tapeworm diet wasn't alone in being a crazy diet fad from recent history, but it certainly was the weirdest and by far the grossest of them all. One of the other popular diet crazes, this time in the early 20th century, was known as Fletcherism. A man named Horace Fletcher suffered for years from indigestion and obesity and decided to come up with a unique method to combat both of these afflictions. Generally, the main concept behind this fad actually makes a lot of sense. Essentially, it was calling for mindful eating, to slow down during a meal and really consider each and every mouthful. There was one mechanical requirement for it to work though, and that was that Fletcherism required you to chew each and every mouthful at least 32 times before swallowing. People of the times denounced him as a quack and accused him of promoting constipation rather than weight loss. In reality, however, there is some scientific backing for his method of eating, even if it can be overwhelmingly tedious. It helped prevent overeating in a very simple biological way. Inside of our small intestine is a group of cells that react to food by releasing a hormone called PYY. This hormone acts as a hunger suppressant and helps to give you that feeling of being full after a big meal. Fletcherism helps this process in two ways. The release of the PYY hormone can often take a while to kick in, and that full feeling can present too late if you're an overly fast eater. The mindful, slow chewing method of Fletcherism helps your body to release that hormone in time to stop you eating more than necessary. The second way that it helps is that the hormone is released even quicker because the overabundance of chewing has helped to break the food down more quickly, meaning it triggers the PYY receptors faster than less chewed food. Now, we are all too aware of them today, but one of the very first diet influences in history was the infamous romantic poet Lord Byron. He advocated for truly bizarre vinegar diet, whereby he would drink undiluted vinegar multiple times a day. But not only that, he would also soak his food in it before eating it. This, apparently and unsurprisingly, was said to be the cause of, at the time, his very in vogue appearance. He was famously known to have been incredibly pale and slim, bordering on gangly as a physique. What most people took to be the epitome of health and fashion more than likely was illness and malnutrition. The annoying thing about all of this is, though in recent studies it has been shown that small amounts of diluted vinegar, and specifically apple cider vinegar, does in fact have a rather large impact on the amount of sugar one consumes from starchy foods like bread when taken before eating. Another bonkers diet idea first appeared in Venice in 1558. A merchant there by the name of Luigi Cornaro published a book titled The Art of Living Long. He was apparently a convert from a life of utter excess into a man who severely restricted his diet. After suffering from exhaustion and illness for a few years, he decided he would institute an almost militant regime when it came to his food consumption. He decided he would only consume 340 grams of food per day, consisting of any combination of bread, egg yolks, meat, or soup. In order to still have some enjoyment in his life, he did allow himself half a bottle of wine per day as well. After mastering this restrictive diet, he apparently took things to even greater heights by allowing himself one single egg per day and nothing more. And who can argue with him when he is said to have lived to the ripe old age of 102? Finally, we come to one of the weirdest of them all, but one which boasts a rather famous adherent, the king himself, Elvis Presley. Now, this diet first surfaced in the 1960s and seems designed purely for people with no self-control whatsoever. It seems to rely solely on the concept that if you're sleeping, you aren't busy eating. So, naturally, it was given the name the Sleeping Beauty Diet. People looking to lose weight quickly would block out a few weeks of their life and then basically just sleep. Now, obviously, the human body can't do that naturally, and so they would employ the use of copious amounts of sedatives, sleeping pills, alcohol, and other drugs to force the body to stay as sleepy as possible, sometimes for up to 20 hours a day. Elvis found out about this practice and, desperate to shed a few pounds, had a doctor put him in a medically induced coma for a few days to stop him being tempted to eat. The king did have a rather unhealthy relationship with food, with the diet often ranging from deep-fried pickles to peanut butter, bacon and banana sandwiches. After gorging on meals like that for a while, it's no wonder he felt the need to sleep it off. Well, there have been so many fad diets throughout the ages, many of which have proven to be physically harmful and damaging, that any perceived gain from the regime is often more than outweighed by the negative effects on the body. I am by no means a doctor or a dietitian, but in my experience, our bodies all need different combinations and variations of certain eating habits to perform at their optimum. Moderation is always key, but so is finding out what works for you in a sustainable manner. But that's enough from me. I hope that whenever you eat your next meal, you savor it and enjoy it, as that truly is the essence of the joy that is food. This show is made entirely by me, Nick Charlie Key, with our theme music having been made by the enigma that is the mysterious Breakmaster cylinder. If you'd like to support the show, the simplest way to do that is over on our Patreon account. There's just one option. So for just $2 a month, you'll help me keep producing this show. And in return, you'll get your name forever etched onto our supporters' wall of fame over on our website. Oh, and then maybe listen out for your name in an upcoming episode. So until next time, bon appetit.